This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Do you play FanDuel and feel like you aren't creating consistent money-making lineups? Go over to the DFS Doctors on Twitter at the DFS Doctors and DM them with promo code Detroit Sports to get a free trial for their analytically formulated 70% lifetime profit rate NFL and NBA lineups. The whole purpose of playing daily fantasy sports is to get out there and compete and give yourself a chance to win. So go over to the DFS Doctors. Let them help you. They have analysts on staff that look at the best optimal lineup that you can put out there to win money. So why not take advantage? At the DFS Doctors, promo code Detroit Sports.
CBD is a game changer sweeping the nation. This hemp extract is the natural way to elevate your mood, eliminate aches and pains, reduce anxiety, and keep you sleeping all night long. It can even cut your workout recovery time in half. Get in the game today with 20% off all orders of CBD and lavender products from Lavender Lane, a lavender farm located right here in Milan, Michigan. Just go to lavenderlanemi.com today and enter coupon code Detroit for 20% off your entire order. Guys, look, these amazing products are infused with calming lavender to maximize their effectiveness, meaning your CBD items only take minutes to take effect, which is way quicker than those pills you were about to swallow. On top of it, they are perfect for men and women. Lavender Lane has lab-tested CBD creams, tinctures, and roll-ons that are perfect for any situation, even if you're on the go. Put your health back in your hands by heading over to lavenderlanemi.com and entering coupon code Detroit for 20% off your entire order of CBD and lavender products. What do you have to lose? Your satisfaction is guaranteed or your money back. So if you need lavender gifts for your loved ones or just looking for the natural way to ease your discomfort with CBD, go to lavenderlanemi.com and use coupon code Detroit to unlock these miraculous benefits of CBD and lavender. That's lavenderlanemi.com. And remember, use coupon code DETROIT for 20% off your CBD and lavender products from Michigan's own Lavender Lane.
Is there a sports podcast in Detroit that people are talking about?
Hey, everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Welcome everybody to the latest edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon joining me, my cousin Adam, the Jock Strozinski. Cuz it sounds like your move has not gone the way in which you would have thought. It seems like every time you're tasked with either getting furniture, setting up your cable, setting up your internet, there's always something cockeyed happening, man, and I'm sorry to hear that.
I know, I came rolling in here on the telephone with customer service, waiting an hour and a half. When I was about, an hour and 5 minutes is what it ended up wrapping up to be, just for them to tell me, oh, we don't have any information for you. We will escalate this and give you a call back in 24 to 48 hours. Thank you. This internet company just wows you. Probably should have went with that one company that's got that big old X, even though I hate them. So screw you, Comcast.
Man.
So bad, man. Then now we got to record off this. I'm all irritated. So this will either be a very good podcast, or this is going to be one of those podcasts where I'm just kind of off my own headspace thinking about this because I want to go punch people. Well, so sorry about that, bro.
In the world of Detroit sports, I think we're heading into March Madness. Michigan State are going to be making runs, in my opinion. I think that there's an opportunity for both of them to peak and play well. I think when both you and I kind of previewed what was going to happen this year, we both kind of thought, well, it's going to be probably an up and down year. Maybe Michigan State was going to make a deeper run. Many people didn't know what to think about Juwan Howard in his first go around. And then Juwan Howard got out of the gates pretty quick, having that great run in Atlantis and defeating top 10 teams left and right. Then Michigan has a lull in the mid part of the season, and then Michigan State takes a dive, and now they're coming back. So it's a great time, combined with the fact that maybe, just maybe, when March Madness hits, we can actually, you and I, march our asses down to the casino and lay down some official legal bets on the knowledge that we know and maybe make some money. So cheer up a little bit. I think that at least March Madness, looking away from the nonsense of the pro teams, should bring us a little bit of excitement. I'm kind of excited. I took in the entire Michigan State Penn State game, and boy, was it exciting. Michigan State gets down by 19, and you think, oh my God, Penn State can't miss a three. Michigan State grinded in the second half, and they came out and they inched away, and it was an epic win. One of the better wins, I thought, for the 2019-2020 season, man. Good, gritty win by the Spartans.
Yeah, Michigan State is, again, this is the classic Tom Izzo, puts together a team that can beat you in multiple ways. It's not just... We're gonna delve into this a little bit as we kind of continue with this topic, but not like Michigan, right? I really feel like Michigan has one way to beat you and only one way to beat you. Michigan State is multifaceted. They can grind you down. They can beat you on the defensive side. They can hit some threes. They can go inside. They can hit a jump shot. They've got multiple ways to beat you, which is why I think out of the two in-state teams, I think Michigan State has the makings to make a deeper run. Right now, I think Michigan State is starting to peak at just the right time. They've won 5 of their last 6 games heading into their game against Ohio State. I think they're going to handle Ohio State, and then it's going to set them up really, really nicely with a bye week going into the Big Ten tournament. And then I think from there, they just kind of get rolling a little bit. And depending on how the brackets kind of shake out after Sunday, it'll be interesting to see who they get paired up with and who they match up with, because this team, honestly, I think there's probably, 6, maybe 7 teams that you can make a legitimate case for, because this is a weird basketball season. It's a weird college basketball season right now. Legitimately, it is wide open. There's a ton of teams that could win the whole damn thing. And I think Michigan State's one of those teams. I think they've put themselves in a spot where they could win everything. At the same point, there's another team that could be out in the first round. It's been a crazy, crazy basketball season in college right now. How many times have the number 1 overall team flip-flopped or has lost a big game or has tumbled through the rankings? I mean, Michigan started the season rated very, very highly. They ended up they ended up beating
Gonzaga?
Yeah, it was Gonzaga. They ended up beating
North Carolina?
They beat Gonzaga. They ended up beating North Carolina. Yeah. So right around that time, at that exact moment, what was Michigan? I think Michigan was unranked, but after they beat Gonzaga, I think they jumped all the way up to 6, which was nuts. And now they ended up falling out of the top 25, and now they're back up at 25. And same thing with Michigan State. Michigan State starts the year ranked number 1 overall and goes on this weird little losing streak in the middle of the season, very similar to last year. And now all of a sudden they're getting hot again. They're currently ranked 16th, right? So this is a team that has basically scratched and clawed its way back into contention. And again, looks like they are turning it on at just the right time. This is classic Tom Izzo. Classic Michigan State basketball.
Yeah, heading into March Madness, the Big Ten this year was really, at one point, fascinating to watch because no team could go on the road and get a victory.
Yeah.
And you saw and you peeked in and you said, okay, what are the teams that are successful doing? And again, with college basketball and in basketball in general, if you can't make the three, your team can look bad all of a sudden, and you look like a team don't belong. Mm-hmm. I mean, Penn State made Michigan State look like they didn't belong on the court. They dropped 10 3-pointers in that first half, and then they came out and tried the same strategy in the second half, the Nittany Lions, that is, and they were bricking them left and right, and then Michigan State inched away, and it's unbelievable how the three-point shot in basketball just can swing momentums. And then you realize now what's fascinating with both squads in terms of Michigan and Michigan State. Who's going to step up outside of the leaders? Because Cassius Winston, he's going to be there. He's going to drop you probably 15 to 17 points. He's going to lead. He's going to make key shots. Outside of that, Xavier Tillman has emerged, solid inside presence, can do some things, especially on the side of rebounding and a lot of good energy. Outside of that, if Aaron Henry, if Rocket Watts can be that guy, you look at it and you say, wow, Watts and Aaron Henry, if they can complement Tillman and Winston, Michigan State can make a deep run. The problem is they're young cats. Henry, we're all waiting to kind of emerge because everyone's kind of touting him like Jackson, like a guy that can be NBA caliber, but he's not consistently showing it. And then you realize, you look over at Michigan and you realize, okay, who's going to step up outside of Livers? Because when Livers is on, that team looks good.
But that's
is it
the
DeJulius?
But here's the problem. Livers has been hurt so much.
Exactly. You can't count on him.
You can't count on him at all. So what do you have to do? And this is a team that is basically built around the three-point shot. So if your shooting goes cold, your gig's up. You're done. You're absolutely done. Now, looking at Michigan's schedule and kind of the way it lays out towards the end of the regular season here in the Big Ten, I think they've got a real good shot to win their last two games. I think the game against Maryland is going to be really interesting. I think you're going to learn a whole lot about this team after Sunday. But then you're going to head into the Big Ten tournament, and depending on where they're seated and dependent on how these matchups fall, this could be a team that is cooked early, or this is a team that makes it all the way to the end. And again, it's all about their shooting. This is a team that relies so heavily on the three-point shot, and you've seen it as the season kind of has gone on, right? When the three ball is falling, this team can beat anybody and contend with anybody. Defensively, they're not a bad team. They're a pretty strong team, but the thing is they rely so heavily on that three ball that when it dries up, they're done. They're absolutely done. This is a team who has won 5 of their last 7 games, 8 of their last 9, and look, I think they're going to mop the floor with Nebraska here tonight. But otherwise, it's one of those things where their last 2 games, shooting has been a little bit of an issue, and if you're not making your threes, and that's what you're going to live and die by, there's a good possibility you're going to die more than you live. And that's an issue that I have with this Michigan Wolverines team is I just don't trust it. I just don't trust it. Like in the past, the teams that have made deep runs, they've had different ways to beat you, and they've had different guys that could beat you. They could dribble and penetrate, get inside a little bit. You can get some easy buckets in the paint. This team, I just really haven't seen it all that much this year. This is a team that really wants to shoot the three, which is great, which is fantastic. When we cover Greg Kampe in Oakland basketball, Kampe says the three ball has basically revolutionized basketball. No, nothing earth shattering here, nothing groundbreaking, right? And he much rather have a team that shoots 37% from three than have a team that hits 55% from anything inside the arc. And it's just because the three ball is worth more points. So I get that, but at the same point, you can really hurt your team.
So I want to look at it like this. Outside of John Teskey and Xavier Simpson, who can you count on? Who's going to step it up? Because if not, it's really fascinating. That's why March Madness is so unbelievable in a tournament format. And I think you and I both are going to be excited to check out the Big Ten tournament, is how do these teams handle the pressure? Because tournament time, freak shit happens. And, if Michigan State gets down 5-10 in the first round or Michigan gets down, how do they rebound? And I think that the Big Ten tournament is going to be epic. And the Big Ten, man, the way I looked at it, I think they're probably one of the top 2 or 3 conferences in the entire NCAA in college basketball. So I enjoyed watching each and every contest. I was out at the Breslin Center. I saw Michigan State pretty much dominate Wisconsin. They played great. Watts was on fire making shots. Cassius Winston was an assist machine. And you realize, wow, Michigan State, when they turn it on, they're legit. Then they go on the road to Wisconsin, and the complete opposite happened where they couldn't make a single shot. And they, struggled mightily, and Wisconsin was able to take it down. And you realize, wow, game in, game out in the Big Ten, it's competitive. And you're hearing word that potentially they could get 10, 11 teams from the Big Ten into the tournament. And that's unheard of. That's unseen. But all in all, I look at it and I say to myself, okay, now's the time to start measuring what these teams are about. And I just have to have the confidence that Michigan State will turn it on. But would I be surprised if they don't make it out of the first weekend? No. I expect the ceiling to be roughly second weekend. Sweet 16, Elite 8-ish, get into one of those tight matchups. And you got to be a 4 or 5 seed. So the Big Ten tournament for the Spartans is imperative. Where for Michigan, I don't know, you're going to tell me how you guys are viewing it. But I don't know. A lot of people are kind of saying and coming out and kind of evaluating Juwan Howard and saying, no matter what, the first year was a success, that they've taken steps, that Juwan Howard, despite, coming on at that time where, when Beeline left, there was kind of that, the timing was sort of an issue in terms of getting Juwan Howard situated with all that he needed to get everything going right away. And he's done well with pretty much all of Beeline's guys. So do you view this first season right now as we sit recording this podcast, no matter what happens in the Big Ten tournament or the NCAA tournament, are Michigan fans viewing Juwan Howard's first year already as a success no matter what happens the rest of the way?
I think you have to. Look, you brought up timing. The timing was a little bit of an issue when John Beilein took the job with Cleveland. It kind of put everything into a very rushed mode. I wasn't a huge fan of Juwan Howard being the selection by Michigan, but I think he stepped in. I think he's done a really nice job. I think what he brings to this team, and you're not going to see it necessarily this year. I think you'll see it next year, and I think you'll see it as his tenure kind of rolls on here. He's going to bring a bit more of what you see in the NBA as far as an offense goes. It's going to be a lot more heavily relied on with the three ball. I think with John Beilein, you've seen a head coach who came in and it was supposed to be all 3-point shooting, all 3-point shooting, all 3-point shooting. And then as John Beilein got here, got more familiar with his team, with what was going on, he kind of evolved his game plan to kind of match the guys that he had and to match who he was going up against. I think with Juwan Howard, I think it's going to be, this is the way we're going to play. Come get us, And in this case, it's going to be very reliant on the three. All that being said, I think the one thing that he brings to this team and to this program is he brings credibility and he has the ability to go out there and recruit. I think what you've seen from Juwan Howard, the moment he stepped in, was you started getting 4- and 5-star guys saying yes to Michigan. And I think that's what you're going to get. I think the season has been a success, but I think what you're going to really see is what's going to happen as the season kind of moves along and as his tenure moves along. It's going to be getting those guys, those 4- and 5-star guys, and bringing them in and then putting them in a place in a situation where they're going to help this team win. And they're going to be offensive guys who can play some defense, and that's what you're going to lean on. That's what college basketball has become. It's the guys who can take over games. When you look at this Michigan roster, there's not a lot of guys who can take over a game. Isaiah Livers is like one. And then after him, there's really nobody else. You look at Michigan State's roster. You got Cassius Winston. You've got Xavier Tillman. You've got Aaron Henry. If he gets hot, he can take over a game. You brought up Rocket Watts, who at times has shown flashes. So you've got guys on Michigan State's team who can fill in and help out. Whereas Michigan's roster, it's essentially one guy. Xavier Simpson, I don't know where his career goes after here. You'll probably see him playing overseas somewhere. John Teskey's a guy who I think can play in the NBA, and I think he will get a shot. But again, he doesn't have the ability to take over a game, or at least he hasn't done it enough this season. So what you've got here is you've got a bunch of playmakers from Michigan State, and really and truly you've got one who is always limping around the court and always hurt with Isaiah Livers. So I think what you're going to see is an influx of playmakers coming to Michigan, and I think that is where I think Michigan fans need to kind of put their hope. Where this season's going to go and where things are going to transpire and how it's all going to end when it all shakes out. Look, if you make it to a Sweet 16, consider yourself lucky. If you make it to an Elite 8, it's been a great season. But after that, I don't think you've got the guys that can do it. I just don't.
In terms of what Juwan Howard brings to the table, what's his biggest strength? What are you guys excited about? Because Tom Izzo, tenacity, rebounding, just an overall attitude, tons of experience, and he just, like you've said, he just takes a team and takes them through this emotional roller coaster and things like that. Even in the Penn State game, he's all screaming at, Cassius Winston, and Cassius Winston screaming back at him. But at the end of the day, they love Tom Izzo. Mm-hmm. And despite all the, controversy that we saw last year with the finger pointing and all the stuff that you hear about Tom Izzo, he's one of the greatest coaches of all time and probably doesn't even need the second NCAA title to secure his legacy, a surefire Hall of Famer and somebody that is widely respected all across the NCAA, and probably one of the best decisions he ever made was not acting like John Beilein and going off to fail in the NBA. He stayed at Michigan State, and like he said at the Mel Tucker press conference, probably going to have to be dragged out when he dies from Michigan State. That's how much he loves the Spartans. And you look at it and you say, okay, what are you starting to see with Juwan Howard? What's going to be his staple? The one thing I like, though, I think early on what you're seeing is there's a vibe that some certain type of players want to play for him. Mm-hmm. He's starting to get that buzz that, hey, some 4- and 5-star guys might be on board because everybody remembers the history of the Fab Five. They know him from the pros. And so you're starting to see that, okay, step one for me, being someone that's on the outside a little bit looking in at the Wolverines, he brings a certain level of respectability and credibility that program needs moving forward. So year one, I think, is a success. Whatever happens, you don't want to get blown out in the first round of the NCAA. You don't want to look terrible. You don't want to look unprepared. But I think going into it, if the Michigan Wolverines are healthy, I think they can ball out with Wagner, with Teskey, with Jeff Jackson Simpson. I think there's opportunities to handle their business and kind of overcome some of those minor bumps in the road along the way there.
I think the one thing that he really brings to his style of coaching and why players want to play for him, he never seems really out of sorts, never really seems like his feathers get ruffled. I think because he has that NBA experience, because he has worked with younger guys, and he has a way to communicate with you, has a way to talk to you. It very different than Tom Izzo. Tom Izzo is very authoritative, right? It's my way or it's the highway. I think what you have with Juwan Howard is, hey guys, this is what I'm thinking. How do we put this into practice, and how do we make this work? And I think that's kind of the difference. That's why guys want to play for him. You get a little bit more freedom, a little bit more creativity. You get to kind of go out there and you get the ball. I think the one issue I take with Juwan Howard as a head coach is the coaching philosophy. And it's the in three we trust philosophy that drives me up a wall. I think you have to be able to layer that in with other things, because when the three's not falling, you're going to lose games, right? And we've seen it happen a couple times already this season where they've relied so heavily on the three, it's cost them games. If it was one of those things where the three ball is going to be our number one option and our priority, but if that's not working, we have the guys and we have the players with the acumen to be able to adjust on the fly, and we can work the ball inside, or we have guys who can hit jump shots and we can hit, 12-foot bunnies, or we can hit, a long two, or even we've got Teskey, who's a big dude, can play inside, can play outside, can do a lot of different things. We'll work the ball into Teskey and we'll let him feast all day long. But you don't really see that. You don't see that enough, especially when things aren't going right for this team. You don't see them flip that switch and be like, okay, cool, we're going to do an about face and we're going to kind of switch it up here. Defensively, I like what he brings. I think this team does play hard on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that will come. I think his defensive coaching philosophy will come the longer he's here. But relying so heavily on the three becomes really, really scary for me, because if it's not going down, you're going home. And this team doesn't have enough playmakers on it to where you can overcome poor shooting. And that's what really makes me nervous about this team.
Ooh, I sense some nerves. I don't sense the confidence that's needed from my guy here. What's going on?
Well, I mean, look, this is his first year. Mm-hmm. So with John Beilein, I remember the first time he got to the tournament, and they took on, I want to say it was Cincinnati. And I don't remember if they won that series or lost the series. I just remember being happy that they were in the tournament. And the thing is, he built from that, right? I think they ended up winning that, but it was really, really close. They got to move on, or maybe they lost by 2. I don't remember. But anyways, they played Cincinnati, and I think John Beilein's first go-round in the NCAA tournament. But he was able to build on that, and you knew what you were getting. That was a guy who had been there a time or two, How many times did you make it to a Final Four with John Beilein? How many times did you get to play in the championship game with John Beilein? And it really and truly, it felt like John Beilein just basically hit the reload button every single season. Like, cool, we lost a couple guys, reload, cool. We lost a couple guys, reload, cool. We're in a Final Four, okay, great. You know what I'm saying? That's what it felt like. So now you've got Juwan Howard, his first tenure really as a head coach at any level higher than probably AAU, right? Because when he was in the NBA, he was an assistant. Now he's a head coach at Michigan. I don't know what we're going to get. Things get screwy around tournament time, and you know this. Tom Izzo is a much better coach when he has to play you on the second day than he is on the first day. You look at the way the Michigan State has won and lost over the years, right? So they sometimes, and they tend to struggle when they play that first day of the weekend, but they're going to get you that second day. You know what I'm saying? When Tom Izzo has that short turnaround, he's a coach who is excellent at the X's and O's and preparing his team on that short window. Is Juwan Howard the same way? I don't know. You don't know this. We don't know this. We won't know until they get into the tournament and you get to see it. And that's kind of where my nerves come in because I'm unfamiliar. I don't know. I can't tell you what he's going to be able to do. He is not John Beilein. He is not Tom Izzo. He is Juwan Howard. And I don't know what that means because we haven't seen it yet. So I'm a little apprehensive and I'm taking the wait and see approach. Do I think he's a good basketball coach? Yeah, I think he's pretty decent. I think he stepped into a little bit of a rough patch here, a little bit of a tough spot. And really and truly, he made the best out of it. Don't be surprised if you see this team get a 5 to 7 seed. You know, they do really well in the Big Ten tournament. It can catapult them up maybe into a 4 seed. You know, they might be one of the worst 4 seeds, but it could catapult them up into a 4 seed if they get hot and they win the Big Ten tournament. Who knows? I think he's done a pretty solid job. I just don't know what he's going to do come tournament time. And the tournament's a different animal.
Okay, let's look at the high-end ceiling for Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see Cassius Winston turning it on, leading this team a la Mateen Cleaves? Because here's the problem. Michigan State has the makings of a team with potential, and this is why this team, this 2020 version, kind of is tough to tell because there have been teams with less talent that have made it to the Final Four. This team arguably has one of the best point guards in Big Ten history.
Mm-hmm.
They got all the pieces, but you can't count on them consistently to show up and do it.
It always feels like there's something mentally, like there's a mental fog sometimes.
Like I want to see Aaron Henry 2 years from now on this team right now. I want to see them just execute and kind of just develop that swagger. It's like, you know, you look at Michigan State lately and you had the likes of Miles Bridges. You had the likes of Jaren Jackson. But did they ball out at Michigan State? No, they lost to Syracuse.
Yeah.
I was there at LCA. They got zoned out. And, now Miles Bridges balls. Now Jackson is a baller. But at Michigan State, how did you not get enough? How did you not get enough out of them?
Well, here's the thing. Do you think that's more an issue with Tom Izzo, or do you think it's more an
That's
issue
what
with
I
the
was
guys?
talking to a friend. I was like, how does Michigan State maximize potential? Because here's the thing. Foster Lawyer is a guy that, Tom Izzo admittedly says, I haven't given him enough confidence. He hasn't developed. That should be a guy that should do some things. Unfortunately, you just wish that, this team would have had, the likes of Langford, and you would have had the full complement of all the weapons to see what this team could have reached. Because remember, this team in the preseason was, by all accounts, the number 1 preseason team going into the season. But right away, Langford gets hurt, and now you just haven't seen enough. You've seen the emergence of Rocket Watts and things like that, but you just haven't seen the next guy grab the bull by the horns. Tillman and Winston will do the job. Is it going to be Aarons? Because you got to remember that Michigan State has had a bunch of players in the past that would step up and make threes. In the tournament, bro, it's going to be tough. And this year, it's so wide open. There's like literally 40 teams that could make the Elite Eight. And they're so good. And it's there's no one team that everyone's just like, wow, they are for sure locked in. I mean, you could see the likes of Duke losing early. You could see mid-major like Dayton kind of emerge. You could even see, the likes of Michigan make a run if they jack up a bunch of threes and make them. So this year's run is tough, but I'm fascinated to get your sense of what's the ceiling for Michigan State, because it's tough to predict, but you almost see it right there. They're right there on the verge of greatness.
I think it has the makings of a team that could totally win the whole thing. If you want to put the ceiling on it, I think they could win everything. Mm-hmm. That being said, this is a team you've kind of talked about it and you've kind of touched on it, right? Your head coach sometimes limits the creativity of the team, sometimes puts players in boxes. Foster Lawyer is a fantastic example. How long have we been hearing about Foster Lawyer? It's been, 2 seasons at least? And what have you gotten from him? Hardly anything. And who's that on? That's on Tom Izzo. So you have a team here who I think has the potential and could win it all. And you've got a built-in storyline with this team. You have everything that's gone on with Cassius Winston, with his brother dying. You have all of that. You've got the emotional pull there. You got the tie-in for it. This is a team that can say, hey, let's go out there and let's win this whole thing for Cassius, because he's basically bullied his way through a really, really rough season and hasn't missed a beat. But you also have a team here who could totally fall flat on their face. You've seen how they were scuffling in the middle of the season there, losing back-to-back-to-back games. It's at a stretch, they ended up losing 3 or 4 games. And when the game that they ended up winning, if I recall correctly, I don't even think they played all that well. It was one of those things where, they kind of eked out a win. Well, it was against Wisconsin. They did okay in that game. But again, this was one of those seasons where it was against Illinois. And they actually, they almost lost to Illinois. So this was one of those things where it's been an up and down season for this team. But I think Tom Izzo revels in this. And as long as he doesn't box his guys in, I think he's got enough potential and he's got enough guys that they could totally take down the entire thing. On the flip side of it, you could be out after game 2. It's the NCAA tournament. The NCAA tournament is its own beast. So these things happen. I think Tom Izzo is a guy who wants to play his style of basketball. He's really good at identifying talent and going out and getting guys. Whether those guys fit what he wants to do or his style accentuates what they want to do, I don't know. I don't necessarily think so all the time. And I think that's why you see a guy like Miles Bridges go to the NBA and he's killing it, I think Cassius Winston is a guy who fits what Tom Izzo wants to do. That's why he's able to do everything that he's able to do, and that's why he gets the playing time that he gets, right? Now, does Cassius Winston go to the NBA? Does Cassius Winston move on? And does he become some great player? This might be a Mateen Cleaves type situation. Mateen Cleaves was fantastic for that championship Michigan State team. Went to the NBA, and he was just kind of a guy. But that's because he fit Tom Izzo's system. Tom Izzo's a great coach, and I think he has a system that works for him. I don't necessarily think all of his guys fit his system the best. But I think the ceiling, they could win the whole damn thing this year. And again, like you said, it's wide open. Like we've talked about, there's 6, 8, maybe 10 teams who could win the whole damn thing. It's been an absolutely crazy season in college basketball right now. Those 6, 8, 10 teams that can win the whole thing, Michigan's not one of them. Michigan State is.
Oh, yeah, it's good to hear, man. I like to hear that.
It's good to hear.
Hell yeah, it's good to hear. I want to hear that my team is undeniably the best team in the state. And I think that going forward, I think that the rivalry between the Spartans and the Wolverines in basketball is going to heat up pretty well. It's going to be nice.
Can I tell you this? I thought it was extremely important that Michigan got that win against Michigan State when they matched up the second time around. I thought that was key for Juwan Howard and for the program. At no point do you really want to ever go back to the closing the gap era. Do you know what I'm saying? CTG. We do not need to go back to that era. John Beilein did a good enough job getting you to the point where you were on par and probably were ahead of Michigan State. I think John Beilein leaving, I think Michigan kind of falls a step back behind Michigan State. I think Michigan State takes another step forward. So there's a little bit of catching up to do, but I don't think it's this monumental chasm that can't be overcome. I think that game was so important for Juwan Howard and for the university and for his tenure. I think he needed that win, especially in state.
Ooh, great segment talking college hoops. Love it. Stay with us. Now we're going to turn our attention to the Detroit Lions. You and I both watched the Combine. Lots to get to in regards to who impressed us. Is Isaiah Simmons the guy? Did he do enough with that 4.39 40? Holy cow. Never watched so many dudes run. Never been so disappointed. I wanted Ruggs to break the record, and they hyped it up. They got my attention. I sat there and I watched it, and I've never been so disappointed in a 4.4 40 in my life. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what? This guy's supposed to break a 4.2. What's up with this guy? But in the end, Ruggs was amazing, and Chase Claypool was amazing. Donovan Peoples-Jones was amazing. Tristan Wirfs. Oh, man, lots to talk about with the Combine and the Detroit Lions next here on Doc and Jock. The reason why Adam and I are able to broadcast each and every week, the reason why our network now is affiliated with Sports Illustrated and Maven Sports is because of the great support of all of you listeners and the great sponsors of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. And the two sponsors this week are the Motor City Pawnbrokers and the Flick Chat application. The Motor City Pawnbrokers are the one-stop pawn shop when you're looking for quality, brand name new, and pre-owned merchandise with locations in Detroit, Roseville, Ferndale, and Warren. Their mission is to deliver exceptional value. today, right now, as you're listening, head on over to MotorCityPawnbrokers.com. That's MotorCityPawnbrokers.com. And if you're near one of the 4 locations, head on into the Motor City Pawnbrokers. Ask for Mark and the crew, and they'll provide you great customer service and let them know, hey, the Detroit Sports Podcast Network sent you. A great sponsor of the network, the Motor City Pawnbrokers. If you've agreed or disagreed with anything that Adam and I have said on this week's edition or any edition of our podcast, download the Flick Chat application and get in the mix. It's Detroit Sports' newest chat headquarters, and we're there daily talking about all things Detroit sports, professional wrestling, pop culture. What is Flick Chat, you ask? It's a great group chat application for your mobile phone. Real simple. You head on over to the Google Play Store or the App Store via your iPhone, and you download Flick Chat. And within moments, you can be part of great sports forums. You can create your own topics. You can break down Detroit sports, watch the games daily, and you can chat with other Detroit sports fans. And if you're a fan of podcasting, you can listen to your favorite podcast right there directly via Flick. Flick Chat, Detroit Sports' newest headquarters, and a fine sponsor of this network. So, Cuz, how much of the combine did you get to take in over the last 5 days?
Not enough.
Yeah, it was good.
Not enough, man. I watched a little bit when the running backs and the quarterbacks were out there. I watched a little bit with the defensive linemen, a little bit with the offensive linemen as well. Really and truly, unlike in years past where I have basically dedicated whole days to watching all of the combine, I could not do that this year. I basically popped in and out and caught glimpses of it. One
flaw with the entire combine was I just felt like the primetime situation didn't suit me because I got tired at around 9 o'clock. I couldn't watch it. I wanted to.
It becomes hard then.
It is tough, right?
Yeah.
So it was super tough to be able to, just sit and pay attention to everything. But, when the workout started around 4, it was prime time, man. It was good time from like 4 to 8. And that was great. So I really enjoyed it. The 40s were definitely impressive. Obviously, the work that Isaiah Simmons put in really had a lot of people talking, Cuz. So I'll ask you, did he do enough in your mind to make it worthwhile to take him, Isaiah Simmons, at number 3? Because that's been the talk, because a lot of people are coming out and saying this guy doesn't have a clear position. Mm-hmm. There's been respected media members like Jeff Riston who said, hey, back this hype train up. This is a guy that would cause a lot more headaches for the Lions than he brings to the table. And so he's having debates with his own staff. There's debates all over the place. I'm all for it. I was like, what I saw, I don't care, Matt Patricia. Show me you're a defensive guru and find the spot for that guy. That guy's a freak athlete. I don't see busting him. I see a guy that, wow, at that height and weight and at that speed, dude can, finally line up over a tight end and cause some damage. You can put him in at safety. You can put him in, on the line. You can do whatever you want. And he said it himself. I'm just an NFL player. Do what you may. And I just think that I would not be.
That's what you want.
That's what you want. I think this guy, the problem is, though, everyone uses their rational brain and they say, Matt Patricia would take this guy and fuck him up. And so that's what everyone's saying. But we got to have hope that Matt Patricia would understand how to use him and incorporate that guy's skills into the defense. The problem is everyone's like, Matt Patricia can't do that. This is the Lions, and they would take him and make him probably a safety and then would leave him there forever to die if he struggled. They wouldn't utilize his skills properly.
Well, he reminds me a little bit because he is quote unquote positionless. Reminds me of a guy like a Kyle Van Noy, who the Detroit Lions have failed to utilize, goes on to New England and gets utilized properly. Or a guy like Miles Killebrew, who has bounced around from different positions, right? The thing is, Isaiah Simmons is a freak athlete. The guy can do just about anything. And the one thing that the Detroit Lions covet, at least defensively, what they covet or what they say they covet more than anything, is flexibility. You've got to be able to play multiple positions in multiple roles. This is a guy who you could line up on your edge and he could get to the quarterback. This is a guy who you could line up in your 4-3 and he could play your outside linebacker. This is a guy who you could basically line up in your 3-4. He could play outside linebacker. This is a guy who could play your slot cornerback if you need. This is a guy who could play your box safety if you needed. This is a guy who has multiple positions that he can play. He is fast. He is quick. He can read the defense and he can blow up the spot if the inability to move out of the 3 spot and trade back and get more picks is not there. I have no problem taking this player at 3.
Yeah, baby.
All right.
Yeah, get him in.
Here's my thing.
Best case scenario is go to 5. Everyone at 5 is
Yes.
good. I think right now we're so close to saying if they trade to 5, besides Okudah, because the corners take long, Brown, Simmons, I think probably are the 2 best options you have right then and there. And I just think that Okudah's fine. He'll be okay, only if you keep Slay. So I'm okay. I think I'm starting to feel like if the Lions don't trade back too far, and if they don't stay at 3 and take, Derek Brown, I think outside of those 2 scenarios, I'm thinking this year's first round, you and I will be, I think I'll be at the facility, maybe making videos and hopefully not embarrassing myself. I think that this year we're poised to not put our heads down on the chair and have everybody go, who? What? Because last year, Hawkinson's pick, man, everyone's like, come on. This year, I think we're poised to be a little bit happier with what's going to happen the first round at least.
If you want a comparison to a guy that I think Simmons kind of is like, look no further than last year with Zach Allen. Zach Allen was the guy who I totally wanted the Lions to take. He was the linebacker out of Buffalo, and again, he's a quick guy. No, he was out of Kentucky. I'm sorry, he's a linebacker out of Kentucky. He's a guy who can totally blow up the spot, get to the quarterback. You can put him on the edge. You can rush the edge. You can drop him back in coverage. He's basically a utility knife. I think Isaiah Simmons is very similar. I think he's a similar player. Again, if I have to put this in order of how I would prefer this to go, my number 1 option is for the Lions to move back to 5, trade with Miami, let Miami move up. You either get a 2nd round pick or you get one of their late 1st round picks. Obviously, late 1st round pick would be much, much better. And then you take Simmons if he's there at 5. And then if you can, you get Jonathan Taylor later on. I think if you can do this with your NFL draft, you do a couple different things. You add playmakers on both sides of the ball, and you add a lot of speed. Both these guys can run a 40 and 4.39. That is quick. Both of these guys are big, thundering dudes who do not shy away from contact and have the ability to make plays and help your team. Both these guys can essentially flip field position and can either score you a touchdown or get you a ball and put your offense in a good spot. So I think if you have the ability to do that, I'm on board all day long. Isaiah Simmons was a guy who I think on both of our radars, really and truly. I think we were watching him, and I think we both kind of thought he could fit here. I don't think either one of us really wanted him at 3, but if that's kind of the way it goes, I have no problem that he's a combine warrior. Go look at the tape. He helped that Clemson defense out all season long. Absolutely he did. I think the bigger question is, what if something crazy happens, right? Because Ron Rivera is in Washington. And I don't know if Ron Rivera is sold on Dwayne Haskins. So what if Ron Rivera wants to either take Tua or wants to take Herbert? Because we're just going to assume Burrows is gone, right? So let's say Rivera wants to take a quarterback, and Rivera's not willing to trade back because he wants to get his guy. He wants to get his franchise guy who's going to basically set the Washington Redskins up to actually have some success. So now you're sitting at 3. And do you take Chase Young or do you take Isaiah Simmons? Because we don't know. I mean, at that point, we'll assume that Miami wants Tua, right? So we'll assume that Tua goes 2. So if you're Miami, do you want Herbert at 5? I think if Tua goes at 2, I think what happens is Detroit kind of finds himself in a little bit of a situation where they get a little bit stuck, unless I don't know. The Chargers want to move up and get ahead of everybody else. Then you're going to have quarterback taken, which will be really weird. But if you're sitting at 3, do you take Chase Young or do you take Isaiah Simmons? Or is there somebody else out there that you think is better than both of those guys? Because in my estimation, in my case, I think I would take Isaiah Simmons over Chase Young.
Oh.
And the reason I say that is because, again, he can play multiple positions. Chase Young is primarily going to be your edge rusher, right? I think what you could do with Isaiah Simmons is you could put him out there on the edge and he could rush the quarterback just as well as Chase Young could. So my question to you is, what do you do? What would you do if Chase Young falls in your lap?
Run up there and take him.
You're taking Chase Young.
He's there. Everyone, that has looked at him, that's a draft analyst and a scout, has says this guy is a pass rushing machine. That don't worry about what he did against Michigan and things like that. This guy will evolve, and this guy is it. You run up there and you don't mess around. You take Chase Young. I think that would be one thing the Lions could do that I think would you'd have sell the team chance. You'd have anger. You would have season tickets canceled. If Chase Young is available, I don't think the vocal minority would get that upset if he was selected. I mean, I just think that the tape says it all. Yeah, he struggled at times against good competition, but you got to remember, he's going to evolve. He's going to get better. And when you're hearing names like JPP, Strahan, and the comparisons that this guy is being compared to, you take Chase Young. So I don't think it's going to happen, though. Everyone that's seeing it and is watching what's going on knows that Rivera has to listen to his boss, and Dan Snyder's going to say, you take Chase Young. He's a hometown guy. This is a guy that we think could come in right away and make some serious noise. So I think it's going to be Joe Burrow, Chase Young, and then Detroit hopefully trading. Ooh, draft talk, baby. Love it.
Look, I don't know, man. I really like what Isaiah Simmons could do. I like what he brings to the team. This is a guy who I think could be better than Chase Young. Could be. And again, it's just because of his versatility. He has the ability to play multiple positions. I think if you're the Detroit Lions and this situation unfolds and you've got to make this tough decision, do you go Chase Young or do you go Isaiah Simmons? I don't think there's necessarily a wrong choice. I think there will be a popular choice and there will be an unpopular choice, as always. But I don't think there's necessarily a right or a wrong decision here. I would be upset if this team stays at 3 and takes Okudah. I just don't think you draft a cornerback that high. I don't care how good he is. I think there are other cornerbacks in this draft that you can get later on that you can plug in or will develop into that number 1 guy that you want or into that number 2 guy that you need. I just don't think that you go number 3. I don't think a cornerback in this league, and you have to watch the way the league has kind of been progressing, right? Pass interference gets called all the time. You essentially can't have corners out there on islands anymore, and you can't allow that one-on-one matchup because you have so many penalty flags that get thrown. I mean, they just instituted a new rule where you get to challenge pass interference all the time because there's so many damn pass interference calls. So do I essentially waste my pick at 3 for a position that is not as impactful as, say, a pass rusher or outside linebacker? I wouldn't do it. All that being said, I don't know if I would pass on Tua if he's there at 3. I thought Todd McShay had some really interesting insight on this. I think we have the clip, so let's hear what Todd McShay has to say about what the Detroit Lions could possibly do at number 3. Like, would you pass on him or would you, I think the question was, would you take Tua or would you take Joe Burrow if you had the choice?
If you were fully comfortable with the medicals, and that's obviously a huge if on Tagovailoa, would you give serious consideration to taking him number 1 overall ahead of Burrow?
If you promised me 10 years of health for both quarterbacks, I would take Tua Tagovailoa over Joe Burrow. And it would be a brutal decision. And I love everything that I saw from Joe Burrow this past year. But I think Tua has a chance to be absolutely special if he can stay healthy. He is what the NFL is looking for today. A playmaker, a difference maker, a player who can extend plays, someone who has the quick twitch like Drew Brees and can go through progressions from the left side to the right side or the right side to the left side as quickly as any college quarterback that I've ever evaluated. And he does it like this. And the ability to, once he sees it, his eyes and his feet are tied together and they're married like very few quarterbacks. I see Aaron Rodgers, I see Drew Brees, that kind of decisiveness and ability to pull the trigger once he makes the decision. That's why I think he's going to be special if he can stay healthy, but it's such a huge if right now, Greeny.
Yeah, to me, that's the most interesting storyline of the entire draft as we sit here about 2 months away.
So Todd McShay basically comes out and says, Tua is the dude, like better than Joe Burrow. And you see what Joe Burrow did. Joe Burrow put up 60 touchdowns through the air this year and won a national championship. But he thinks that Tua Tagovailoa is that much better than him if the medicals come back. Let's just throw that out there. So if that's the case, how do you pass on him at 3? Like how do you do that? I just don't understand, right? I mean, we've already talked about Matt Stafford, right? And there was an article that I don't remember who it was Chris Sims. Chris Sims basically came out and said that if the Detroit Lions aren't in the playoffs this year,
gone. Everyone's gone.
Yeah,
everybody.
Matt Stafford's gone. So how do you pass up on what sounds like, according to one analyst, a generational type quarterback? I mean, he just compared him to Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers, arguably two of the most elite quarterbacks in the NFL still. So how do you pass on this guy? Tell me, please.
Lefty quarterback, injury history. You got Matt Stafford. There are other quarterbacks that you can develop. You got to take one. I think that you do it later on in this quarterback. I think you do it later on in this draft. You can't sit there and take number 3 Tua in a win now mode. I just don't think you can do it. Now, you could try and sell that to ownership and be nefarious about it and not be win now. I would say in later discussions and later articles, it may come out from this analyst. I think that if Trevor Lawrence has himself a good old year again at Clemson, comes off a national title, I would definitely tank for Trevor Lawrence. I have no problem if you come out, and that's why my head has been swirling the last couple of days, because I just wish that Bob Quinn would kind of start to act like Steve Yzerman. Say, look, I know it's win now. I know ownership has said this, but for the long-term health of the franchise, look, one more year of struggling, one more year of give us patience, and give us one more year of kind of developing these young cats and seeing what we have, and then we're going to get the franchise guy and let that be Trevor Lawrence. I'm all for tanking, but the Lions don't seem like they're going to be able to do that with ownership's mandate to win now. So in that vein, I say that Tua just doesn't make sense. I just don't see it yet. I don't see generational talent out of Tua. I see a good quarterback, but I also see for the Lions a super high bust potential, because how do you go this year?
Wait, hold on.
How do you go this year with all that talk of playing Tua? Because all you're going to end up doing is pissing off Stafford. There's no way he's going to want to do that.
Okay, cool. Big deal. Stafford's gone. You trade him. You trade him next year. His cap hit is much easier to swallow.
Yeah.
So you can trade him, get something back into return, and you just let Tua go out there and play next year. I don't see what the big deal is here. I don't see a problem with it. And here's the thing, right? You said you don't see what a big play quarterback out of Tua, right?
Generational talent.
Generational talent. Did you see generational talent out of Tom Brady?
No, nobody did.
Nobody did. Did you see generational talent out of Drew Brees? You saw an okay quarterback who could maybe develop into something. He was a little bit short, but maybe he could do some things. Drew Brees has been one of the best quarterbacks that we've had. Look at Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was a guy that essentially 24 other teams had a chance to draft, and everybody passed on him because he had a bad attitude coming out of Cal, and he had a bad haircut. Green Bay picked him up, and they stashed him on their bench. So here, you sit behind Brett Favre. Brett Favre was like, I'm not coaching this dude up. That's your guys' problem. And look at what happened. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's really, really hard to put that thumbprint on a guy and say, you're a generational talent. You're going to be the next elite quarterback. I mean, Joe Burrow did some things this year that was absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. All right? 60 touchdowns is nuts. There was a point where he was throwing touchdowns, and I was keeping score in that first round college playoff game. And I was like, so he's got like 52. I was like, is there any chance? Because the way he was rocking and rolling early in that first quarter, I was like, is there any chance he puts up 60 this year? And sure as shit, he put up 60. Like, that's unheard of. That is crazy. Joe Burrow might flame out. Remember Ryan Leaf? Ryan Leaf was drafted pretty early. He didn't do anything. You know what I'm saying? Peyton Manning was a good quarterback. Peyton Manning turned out to be a great quarterback. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, coming out of college, he was a good quarterback. He was up for the Heisman, didn't win it, lost it to Charles Woodson. I love you, Chuck. You know, goes on to be a great quarterback. But all that being said, his brother has just as many Super Bowls as him. And one of those Super Bowls, he didn't even win. So, look, it becomes really, really difficult to put that stamp on a guy and say, you're a generational talent, you're going to be great, or you're not going to be great. And I get that. What I'm telling you is what we've seen from Tua is he's got all the makings to be outstanding. He's got all the tools in his tool belt. Can he do it? I don't know. But what I will tell you is it seems almost a certainty that Miami is going to want him, that Miami will probably be willing to trade up to grab him. Does it feel almost like it's written in stone that Detroit's going to end up trading back with Miami? Does it feel like that to you? Is it starting to feel like that? I mean, all the hubbub and all the discussion really centers around the Detroit Lions. And then it all comes back to Miami because Miami's got a ton of draft picks. They've got a ton of draft capital. They've got, 3 first-round picks? I think they've got 5 picks in the first 2 rounds. I think 7 in the top 70. That's crazy. They've got a ton of draft picks. And if all they need is their franchise quarterback, and if this franchise quarterback is as good as everybody thinks Tua might be,
it's a given, bro. It's a given.
Detroit has to trade back, right? They have to. And it just feels like it's building to this. It feels like Detroit is going to get a nice haul back. All that being said, Detroit gets this haul back. What type of position are you looking to fill either late in that first round or early in that second round? What are you thinking? Where are you at? Because I know going into this draft, you've kind of got your mind almost made up on positions of need and guys you kind of want to target. So you don't necessarily have to give me a name, but you're going to move back to 5 and we'll play a game. You'll move back to 5 and I'll give you, I think it's their 26th pick. What are you going to do with the 26th pick? And what are you going to do at 5? Or you move back to 5 and then you'll get their 5th pick in the second round as well as your 3rd pick in the second round. What are you doing?
I have a mock draft potentially in the works where, spoiler alert, I got Detroit trading with Miami for number 5 and number 26.
Okay.
And I got them taking Isaiah Simmons, number 5.
Okay.
And running back from Georgia, DeAndre Swift.
Ooh. Well,
running back. So we go into the running back realm because at the end of the day, they need one.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're going to, take J.K. Dobbins or Jonathan Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that DeAndre Swift kind of did enough for me to handle business.
Okay, tell me why DeAndre Swift, because I like where your head's at, because I think this team needs a running back as well. And I love the Isaiah Simmons pick. But I would go Isaiah Simmons and I would go running back out of Washington. Oh man, why am I drawing a blank right now? Damn it. Give me 1 sec. I'm going to find him. But he crushed the 40. Jonathan Taylor. So I'm going to move back and I'm going to take Jonathan Taylor if he's there, because you bring in both these dudes. You bring in Isaiah Simmons, you bring in Jonathan Taylor. You just added a ton of speed and you added playmakers on both sides of the ball. And a couple different things happen here. You help shore up your front 7 a little bit, right? By adding Isaiah Simmons. You add a guy who can get to the quarterback. You add a guy who can fall back into coverage. You add a guy who can do a multitude of things and is fast and explosive. Offensively, you add Jonathan Taylor. This is a big, bruising running back. This guy is essentially draws comparisons to Saquon Barkley with the way he's built, but he's fast. 4.39 is quick for a man of his build. You shore up your run game, which then helps your quarterback. You can now legitimately, as a football team, run the football, something you haven't been able to do since Barry Sanders was here. On top of that, you can run the ball differently than when you had Barry Sanders. When Barry Sanders was here, it was a lot of trick plays. It was a lot of weird stuff. It was a lot of zigzagging, a lot of doing 60 yards to get 6 yards, because Barry would run all over the field to get you a little bit. Then every now and then he'd break one off for 120. Field doesn't even stretch 120 yards, but somehow Barry did it. All right? Jonathan Taylor's a downhill runner. Jonathan Taylor is quick. Jonathan Taylor is fast. He will hit the hole and he will explode and he will get upfield. And he will take 2 or 3 dudes with him. For me, I'm going that route. You tell me why DeAndre Swift.
I think that what you saw from Georgia was explosiveness, 20 touchdowns. I think that you see a guy that's 212 pounds of just pure outside speed that can complement Kerryon Johnson. You need that home run threat.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the Lions don't have. They just don't have a home run threat. And among those 3, I think Swift could be a guy that would fit in right away in this system and handle his business. So I think that J.K. Dobbins and definitely Jonathan Taylor are definitely elite level running backs. But I don't know. I just got a feeling like, okay, a Georgia guy with Matthew Stafford might be a good fit. Georgia connection. You know what I'm saying?
Georgia. What if Jake Fromm's still floating around in the 3rd round? Do you go get your quarterback in the 3rd round?
He kind of tanked a little bit.
He didn't do very good.
And his kind of review was great on the board, understands schemes, understands how to write it all up, but his zing was not there in terms of what you saw on TV, and he was slow as fuck, bro. He was the slowest quarterback that ran. But 5.0 speed. That's pretty awful. So that when you see it, you're like, whoa, he was on, unfortunately,
He's got tiny hands, right?
I want to say something about the media, which is funny. There's a certain media group now that's overly positive, so they don't do combine winners and losers. They do combine winners. I was like, come on. You can, you don't have to put, others do risers and fallers.
Uh-huh.
At the end of the day, this is sports. Winners and losers. That's what you write about. Combine winners only. That's all we're going to talk about. Hell no, dude. The second that shit came out, winners and losers, baby. Who did good and who didn't? If they can't handle it, tough shit. So it was great, man. It was great to do those articles and to check out. Well, Fromm lost, bro. Fromm was a faller and he stunk it up. He was not one of the ones that was like, oh, it was disappointing.
Yeah,
He didn't raise his stock.
Not great. We'll say a guy like Jalen Hurts. How about him?
He rose his stock a little bit. A lot of people talked about him doing well. I think that could be a guy that the Lions could take a look at.
Yeah, I think
third, fourth round, maybe.
I think he'd be a later round pick. So I don't think you're necessarily losing anything if you go grab your quarterback in the fourth round if he's there. That's if he's there though. He could be gone by the third. But I like that. You want to look at a quick mock draft?
Yeah, let's look.
All right, I've got one from CBS Sports here. It was put together by Tom Fernelli, and essentially there's no trades here. No trades whatsoever. So nothing really interesting. But you've got Joe Burrow going number 1. You've got Chase Young going number 2. So now at number 3, we've just had this discussion. At number 3, who are you taking at number 3? You've got Tua on the board. You've got Isaiah Simmons on the board. You've got Okudah on the board. You've got Derek Brown on the board. You've got Tristan Wirfs on the board, the offensive lineman out of Iowa. You've got Henry Ruggs, who I know you've been a huge fan of. You've got Kalavion Chase on the edge rusher out of LSU on the board. Who are you taking at 3, Doc?
Ooh, number 3.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of potential.
A lot of potential.
I think I'm going to stick with it. I'll even go as high as number 3, Isaiah Simmons.
Okay, so that's what he has. He has Isaiah Simmons. Basically, what you have is you've got Miami and trading up one spot to number 5 or to number 4, flipping with New York. Tua goes at 4. But this is what he has to say about Isaiah Simmons. Isaiah Simmons is a freak of nature, and I've been telling you that since my first mock. The Combine only confirmed it for those who didn't already know, and maybe it's convinced the Lions that he's too intriguing of a talent to pass up on, even if he's not a major need. I don't know what he's been watching, but the linebacking core is definitely a major need. I understand there might be some other needs that should probably be held at a little bit of a more premium than linebacker, but if you can get a playmaker as your linebacker, look no further than your Baltimore Ravens with Ray Lewis. That was a playmaker. They got a playmaker. That dude helped catapult that team to 2 championships. So, Come on. I thought that was interesting. Also, like I said, Tua goes at 4. You got Justin Herbert going at 6 to the Chargers. Okudah goes at 7 to the Panthers. You've got CeeDee Lamb going to the Colts at pick 11. There was a trade there with the Jets. Henry Ruggs goes to the Raiders, which is such a Raiders pick, if you ask me, because the guy is fast. We're going to draft him. Who else? Javion Kinlaw, who you're a huge fan of, goes to Tampa Bay. Jerry Jeudy goes to Dallas, which I find to be very, very interesting. Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, I think that is fantastic. You get those Alabama products out there working your outsides. You also have we got T. Higgins from Clemson going to Buffalo. You've got Austin Jackson, offensive lineman, going to Miami later on. AJ Espinosa, the edge rusher out of Iowa, going to Seattle. Jordan Love, the quarterback, going to Utah. Jordan Love rose his stock at the Combine as well. I find that to be interesting, especially with everything that's going on with Tom Brady right now. I find that to be a very, very interesting pick if that was to happen. That kind of rounds out some of the more interesting selections here in this. It's only a 1-round mock draft, but I thought it was kind of interesting. I thought we could talk about it and work it into our discussion, especially how everything kind of centered around
hell yeah, bro. These
Isaiah
mock drafts,
Simmons.
Bro, I'm not going to lie. People love these mock drafts.
Yeah.
What do you think of the one I did, SI, all Detroit, SI, all Lions, where I had it, where the Lions, and of course people said, oh, it's not realistic. But hey, look, guys, mock draft, okay? Rumors.
Here for fun.
I don't want to have to define everything for you, but mock draft means, if you look up the word mock, imitation without the intent to deceive, okay? So a mock draft is one that could happen, okay? So I said, simple, Raiders are desperate. They need a quarterback. They trade their 3 first-rounders to the Lions. And I was like, pretty good, right? Not bad. Or they trade overall 3 first-round picks, I think 2 in this year's draft and 1 next year. 3 first-rounders for the rights to move up all the way from where they're at to number 3. And so I have them, I think, taking Kinlaw and somebody else. I'm going to look it up real fast. Not bad, but you think it's realistic that the Raiders could make a move and give up maybe 2-3 first-rounders?
I think it's real possible because if you look at where the Raiders are drafting and you look at what you would have to give up to get as high as 3, that makes sense. And they've got the extra picks, right? So it would totally make sense. You get 2 this year and you get 1 next year. That totally makes sense.
And they take Kinlaw and Christian Fulton, the cornerback with the 19th pick.
See, I don't mind that because I think Christian Fulton could be
12, Kinlaw 12 and Fulton. You go right away. You go defensive line and you go cornerback.
I say I don't mind that because I think Fulton could be. I think Fulton's a guy who could be
serious.
He could be
he
could be a number 1 cornerback for your team. So you could bring him in, work him into the fold, and if you wanted to, either you could move away from Darius Slay, either on day 2 if you wanted to, if you felt that strong, if that trade came through and you felt that strong about Fulton. Or you could let Slay play out his contract, or you could even rewrite his contract if you really wanted to. You could sign the guy, tear it all up, sign him to a new 2-year deal, all guaranteed money. Here you go. And then when he gets to 30, 31, you can move on. And now you've got your guy who, because again, corners usually take a year, maybe 2 to develop. So you get that time working with Darius Slay. I think that could work. I like that. I think that's fantastic.
Mock drafts, I think, bro, I'm putting out like 2 a week. I think I'm trying not to do more. Vito's like, bro, look how many people read them. Bro, look, I just put one out. Literally, as we recorded this podcast, 200 people are reading it.
Yep.
People love their mock drafts. Why? Because it's hope season, baby. And you and I are hoping that Bob Quinn don't fuck this up.
We are purveyors of hope.
Purveyors of hope, baby. Because I don't know, man. It's going to be tight. I just got the dread. I don't know. In the coming weeks, we got to do better of finding hope for these Lions because they're going to overhaul the team. But the way it shakes out, it just looks like another terrible year. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see. Follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Message us if you think we're talking crazy about the Detroit Lions. At Detroit Podcast, we'll read it. We love the hate. We love the sports debate as well. So follow us. We enjoy discussing everything. And thank you guys for the time. Thank you for pushing download on your favorite podcast app. And we appreciate you listening to Doc and Jock. More than you know. Thanks, everybody.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head, they counsel me, they understand, they talk to me. They talk to me, they tell me things that I will do, they show me